This is Laura, your best friend realtor, and today is one of my most informative videos yet. It is a sad topic, but I'm still going to attempt to deliver it with energy and enthusiasm. This is about probates or estates. So if you lost a family member, and this really applies more to, it could be spouses, so I'm going to talk about that, but the probate and estate portion, typically real estate is owned where the spouse inherits the house if they're still alive. The process may be a little bit different versus like you lose a grandparent and then you need to go through the probate and estate process. I'm going to be talking about ways that I can help. So I'm going to go through a few scenario examples and why I enjoy doing this. I'm going to talk about if you're thinking about just a quick sell to an investor, things to consider. Then I'm going to talk about a conversation I had with one of the probate attorneys we work with and just information in that regard. All right, so I'm licensed now in 3 states. My original state was Mississippi, Pennsylvania, and Florida. And so there is a similar process in all 3 states. Now, my background is I have a degree that's in accounting, it's business. I've taken business law classes, so I studied some of this stuff in college. And then additionally, my husband and I have done over 200 probate and estate transactions. So it is an area of business that we specialize in. I want to share some experiences and some reasons why I enjoyed it and what kind of lulled me into targeting it more and more. There was a client years ago that I helped. The way I met her was she was expired. So she had her house listed with a different agent. It didn't sell. And so I called her. And she would continue to tell me, I'm going to use this other agent. But then she would invite me to call her back. So as a great salesperson, of course, I call her back. And she eventually did wind up using me because of the tenacity I display with her. And also it was just like a reminder of, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And so she had a wonderful marriage. She had lost her husband. He had been really sick and had to have a hospital bed in their home. And she was his caretaker. And so it became that the house reminded her of the bad times that they had together, and she was going to therapy. And so after I sold her house, I helped her buy something else. And there were a lot of hurdles that transpired with that as well that I helped her jump over. And she told me afterwards that she had been going to therapy for depression and that moving houses helped her get rid of the depression so much more. Sometimes our environment, and I've had this happen too, where some bad things happen in life, and then the environment we're in can be a reminder of that. That happened with her, and so it brought so much reward to me. Of course, we all work for money, right? But to have an extra reward like that, it just touched my heart in such a way. Like I want to do this more for people, and I see that people that are dealing with these things are overwhelmed and you need extra help. Another person that I know lost their husband, and the house they had was a big house. It was on 3.5 acres, and the husband took care of the lawn meticulously. And so the wife felt that she had to keep that yard up to the level and the standard that her deceased husband had. And so she stayed there for 5 years, but right after she lost him, she knew what neighborhood she wanted to go to. She even knew the lot. And fortunately for her, the lot that she wanted all that time, she went through and drove through a ton, who knows how many times, she was able to get the house that she wanted. After she sold this house and moved 5 years later, she met a friend in the neighborhood who helped her get a better job. So her home situation, her stress situation, her job situation all improved. But it took her 5 years to get there. But day one, she knew what she wanted to do. And so a lot of people say, wait 6 months, wait a year, don't make any fast decisions. I would say don't find a catfish boyfriend on the internet. And if you don't know what catfish means in that aspect, then please look it up. But I think sometimes, especially as women, we know in our gut, we know in our intuition what is best for us. And so I would strongly suggest, you don't have to wait forever. And sometimes it's in your best interest, right? Like maintaining a bigger place. If she had to pay somebody to cut the yard for 5 years, that's extra money you're wasting that, you don't have to. And so extra cleaning, extra whatever it is, if you know what you want to do. And sometimes a lot of people aren't in a situation. So the other thing is sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes you need time to grieve and sometimes you don't have it and you just need to make decisions. You need to get things moving quickly. So selling a house falls under the top 5 most stressful things that we do in life. And losing someone falls in the top 5 most stressful things we do in life. So if you're dealing with a probate estate, that in itself is a job on top of the busy life you already have. And then you're dealing with grief, one of the worst things in life on top of selling a house or a property. And so it's like 2 of the worst things combined. So that and divorce and selling a house are 2 of the hardest scenarios that I think people go through. The other reason why I enjoy helping people that are going through this is I see a lot of people get targeted by investors. And I think it's okay if it makes sense for what the seller wants. I don't think it's okay when the person is just between a rock and a hard place. They don't know what their options are, and they're just looking for an easy way out or to offload some of the overwhelm. And so I want to give a few examples of those scenarios. So we had a scenario last year where we helped with a probate situation. The seller got an appraisal and this was a large house in a great location. So the appraisal came back $600,000. Now the house needed a lot of work. And we told the seller, look, we can absolutely get you more. They were skeptical. And we sold it for $805,000. So they got $205,000 above what the appraisal said and above the offer they had in hand that they were going to accept if we had not been involved in the conversation with them. But $205,000 definitely more than pays for what it costs to pay us commission. If you want to give me a bonus for that much, I'll take it. Hey, but we see that scenario a lot. That we had another situation where it was 2 brothers and they thought the place was just a dump, and it wasn't as much of a dump that they thought, but they had higher standards than the family member that had passed away. But we told them we could get them $250. They didn't believe us and they just took the offer. And so they lost money. Another situation right after that, and we're like, let's learn from what just happened. Same thing. The lady had an offer from an investor. She thought it was a good offer. We're telling her it's worth way more. And she's like, I don't even know who to believe. And so my husband said, why don't you get an appraisal? She got the appraisal done. It was actually above what we were suggesting she lists for because we were taking into account the condition of the house, right? But she did list with us and she was happy with what we were able to deliver. But without us having been involved, she would have walked away from well over $50,000 in that circumstance. And, it's a $200,000 house. I mean, we're talking about a fourth of the value that you're leaving on the table. And that's what I mean. Even investors can buy, but would you rather have 20 investors or 200 investors all bidding against each other, or do you want just one offer? And so that's the mistake that I feel like a lot of people make when they're considering that route. And even considering that route, we can typically at least get you bids and know that, hey, I'm getting the best deal there is. There's not a lot of extra time that's involved either. And, the fastest you can close once you've done all the probate things that have to be done, if all that's in place or at least started and you're to a place where you can sell it and put the money in the trust account, then usually you can get title work done in 2 weeks, maybe a week if you're really pushing. You can sell within 2.5, 3 weeks from start to finish on a fast end. Now, a normal end would be you list the house, it takes 30 to 45 days to close. I say in a great market, a 2-month turnaround, or if you price it really great, a 2-month turnaround is average. But it just depends on the circumstances, location, and how you position it in the marketplace. So now, again, I want to say I'm not an attorney. I'm just going to read my phone call with the attorney of the steps that are needed when you're looking at a probate in a estate. So, title always needs official authorization to sign at closing. Every title company will need a copy of the death certificate, death date, which is on there, and copy of the short certificate or letter of testimony or letter of administration. I have had scenarios where people are in this situation and an attorney that doesn't deal with this, right? Because attorneys specialize in different law matters. And so not every attorney knows everything, right? Just like a specialty doctor. So if you've been told you don't have to go through this process, it may not be correct. We've had situations where we've basically sold the house and they didn't do this correctly. And so then they had to wait additional time. And as an agent, there were times where I told people that and they had an attorney tell them that wasn't correct. And then while we're very close to closing, then they're told that again from the closing attorney, and then they start the process and it takes longer. It is best to ask the title company, what do you need? And so we can ask that upon the listing or upon even a pre-listing meeting. To open an estate, it's not complicated, but there are a lot of steps. You need to push the right papers in the right direction. Normally why it's best to get help because it's easy to miss something. Probate is the process of administering an estate. A will is with an executor, it's authorized. Also in Pennsylvania, you do need an accountant because there will be inheritance tax to prepare and file to present to the title company. And a lot of times the title company will even hold additional taxes if it's not paid, so that they may hold a little extra. So in Pennsylvania, it's 0 for a spouse, it's 4.5% for a child, 6% for siblings or someone else. And I've heard a live-in partner is 15%. Property tax as of date of death. Accountant will need the date of death. You're supposed to open and file a tax return within 9 months of the death. If it's not done, they will deal with penalties and interest. If they wait a few years, there will be additional interest and penalties. Sometimes when there are back taxes, you need to sell the property just to pay off the taxes. And then again, on top of those taxes, you have property tax and insurance that's coming due every year. Every title company, that's what I was saying a minute ago, every title company will take estimate on inheritance tax, send them the return, and get the refund from escrow. So sometimes you do have to wait even additional time to get all of the money from the estate proceedings. So the process to get register of wills, executor sits down with registrar and takes oath. Right now, at that time, it was delayed, but prior to signing an agreement of sale, technically speaking, estate should already be opened. As long as they have the authorization, they can sign. Like if someone has a will and can show us, we'll go ahead and start the listing process. But this part doesn't need to have delays. No will, the property passes interstate. It's the same process. It's called letters of administration. Have to get someone appointed as administrator, other siblings sign an annunciation. With will, it's the letters of testamentary. No will, letters of administration. Need copy of short certificate, will have a gold seal, proof it's been opened. Then they open an estate account at a bank, and you can draw on 401k at that point. 1 week later, mail official letters and short certificates you requested. So this attorney normally gets 5 copies for his clients. And so much can go into this with the dynamics of a family. And I've sold an estate that had 6 siblings, and 4 of them were actively involved. So that was quite an interesting thing to witness, along with my husband being one of 6. So it's sibling interactions and rivalries and all that. It can be very interesting. So the executor already has the authority to make the decision, but sometimes I see, even though someone's appointed an executor, other family members have a bigger pool. And so I've seen where an executor didn't make the decision because of the other family members. And if there's an issue that can't be resolved, then family has to go to court to fight or change it. If they do, siblings file a petition in orphans court to get intervention of the court. Otherwise, executor has the right to make the decision. Family disputes are the worst and can get sloppy. And this attorney says he doesn't even handle that. So if it gets into that, he just refers it to a different attorney that handles that specialty more. So complicated matters or intricate estates, a court has to approve the sale. And holding a property in a trust or a trustee can be a slightly more complicated matter. And the client can be alive and has the home in a trust and sell, or it can make it complicated. And so there's a potential need to have it signed off from the court. This attorney typically charges $3,500. I just spoke to somebody the other day for something simple. They were at $4,000. This is also something important to know as dealing with this. There's something called the Johnson scale. And so it's based on what are reasonable fees to process an estate. It is percentage based. And this attorney said normally it can take 10 to 12 hours of their time. We have seen where probate attorneys go by the Johnson scale. And so no matter what, they just charge the max percent that they can. And so that is definitely something to be aware of, and the reason it exists is there can be a lot of work and intricacies involved in a estate. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying it is something to be aware of and to be knowledgeable about. Additionally, typically when we're dealing with estates, there can be a lot to deal with deciding on furniture or clean out or what to do with things or how to go about it. We do things where you can leave all the contents and maybe an investor's buying it and he'll just deal with everything. We help people with clean outs. We have a number of clean out companies that we've even had situations where we dealt with getting the house cleaned out and then the seller pay at closing or pay for it at the time, but we just handle the ins and outs of everything. Estate sales, there can be lots of things involved with. I think it's better most of the time. People worry about paperwork and that kind of thing. I think most of the time, it's not good for a house to sit vacant. It's not good for plumbing to not be used, right? And all that stuff. So I think it's better that, you don't wait around. I see times where houses will sit for a few years and people are just overwhelmed by the process and the idea of it. I think it's better to get out any paperwork and maybe move it to a storage area to deal with and or garage or wherever, and go ahead and deal with selling the house. If you're with me this long, thanks for your time. I know it's a lot and it's overwhelming, and we'd love to help. We can help in any matter. We've helped people that needed floors redone or paint or whatever. And so we have resources. As realtors, we sell a lot of houses. We have resources. It's not our first rodeo. My husband's been doing this 21 years. I've been in the business 16 years. My in-laws are in the business. A brother-in-law is in the business. And so, this is what we do. This is what we care about. And so, I'd love to help you. We have a lot of experience, and my husband will often offer help, and people don't always know all the different ways we can help. We have a good list of attorneys as well that deal with probates. We know realtors in other locations. So even if you're not in the location that we are, even if you're in a different state dealing with this, if you want to reach out to me and I can at least get you started with some resources, a referral of a different agent, or maybe a few agents in your area that I would recommend, and knowing as a realtor what I would look for in an agent and maybe can recommend to you, or find someone that has maybe some of this background where they've dealt with and specialize in dealing with this. Because I've seen agents list a property and then realize that this is the situation and they just canceled the listing and they didn't want to deal with it. And I think they just didn't know how to deal with it. They had no experience. And so especially when it's a more complicated matter. You want someone that's done it more than once. Like if you're getting surgery, do you want the doctor? Do you want it to be his first surgery or do you want to be his 1000th surgery? And so we've together sold over 1,500 homes. We've sold, I think, over 250 probates and estates. And so I'd love to help you. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.